my household, we align based on what we want to do for the community, not based on who's voting for who.
Right, right.
You know what I mean? If everybody's heart is in the right place, we can only benefit. We can only benefit the people. You know, so so that's kind of was the message.
Does that usually align?
Sometimes. A lot of times it's the how, right?
Okay.
The how, right? Or the messaging that we kind of go back and forth about. But for the most part, I think that not just my fiance, not just my fiance, but my mother, right? My grandmother, my aunties, and all that. Generally, when you really break things down, we all come into alignment around the same core values, and we believe in the same things. There's a lot of similarity there. Just kind of got to break some of the stereotypes surrounding republicanism in our community. You know what I mean? And really, nothing could be further from the truth. You know, I think the Democrat Party has done a good job of pushing that narrative and normalizing that narrative in our community to keep us away from the things that are beneficial within the Republican Party, right? Beneficial to our community again. I was telling someone the other day that who mentioned the word Uncle Tom. I said, you know, it really makes you look bad to think of me as an Uncle Tom in a derogatory sense, because Uncle Tom was the hero in that book. You see?
Yeah, I see.
That's a big deal, right?
Yeah, it's a big deal.
That's a big deal, right? So it just goes to show that so many of us really, as much as we think we understand our history, perhaps there's some items there that need to be revisited.
Yeah, I think that people are extremely unaware of how the Republican Party itself even got started, and that it was an predominant African American party that started it.
That's it. That's it. It's formed around the abolition of slavery.
Yeah, yeah. But you got to go back to the history. That's all it is.
You always go back to
too much indoctrination.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. So yeah, that's the general gist of how people see. But you know, things are changing, right? Partly due to the messaging coming from organizations like the Georgia Black Republican Council, and all the other states have a Republican Council, a Black Republican Council as well. Majority do. But the message is changing. The view is changing because of that. It's changing because of the transparency that comes with social media platforms like your own, BCP, Anton Daniels, so many others. And it's changing because, quite frankly, Democrats have really let down Black Americans, and so folks are forced to look into other things, and through that search, you know, they find truth. Yeah. They find some truth in the Republican Party. So
that's usually when truth is discovered.
When things get tough.
Things get tough.
That's right. That's right. I always tell people, you can go anywhere around the world. I've been around the world twice. Okay. And you can go anywhere in the world where things get difficult for folks. They always revert back to their core values. And when you look at Black Americans in our history, our core values are actually pretty conservative, particularly for Black men, right? And so, you know, that's kind of where I stand on it. Yeah.
No, I'm 100% in agreement. I remember the first time. This is probably the first time I ever tell this story on the podcast. So the first time that I got versed to actually hearing the ideals of the Republican Party in depth with a receptive ear was when a friend of mine took me to what she called a political meeting. Now, when she said political, I thought there were going to be politicians of every party that were there.
Sure.
So when I walked in, it was just Republicans, but that, of course, they don't wear it on them. They just were there. So when I'm there eating and I'm enjoying the meal, which was delicious, by the way, and it was at a country club, and I'm hearing what they're saying, and it's extremely opposing to what I'm so used to hearing. And
shock for a moment, right?
It shocked the hell out of me, and it made me question my friend at first to why she brought me there. But then the more that I started listening to it, they started really getting into, this is the reason why gas went up. This is the reason why taxes went up.
Sure.
This is the reason for inflation right here. This is the reason for this. And then the more they start talking, I realized this person used to be in office. This person's about to run for office. Sure. This person, and I just realized that I was in the correct room at that moment.
Good, congratulations. Good for you.
And I started going back week after week after week, and I was just flying on the wall. And one of the beautiful things that came out of that, out of the many that are going to come out of that, is I got Deontay over here, the CEO of the Bowling Awards. He was able to have about 100 people on his committee the first year that he did it, and we brought all 100 of those people to the Republican meeting.
Beautiful.
And it was the biggest meeting that they ever had. It was like a football team was behind us, and it was like 10 of them just sitting in there.
Sure.
And they embraced us with open arms, and then we got to meet Bridget, who became one of the commissioners like that week.
Right.
So it was so much knowledge and information, and we bridged the gap on that day.
That's beautiful.
That was one of the most beautiful things that came out of me going to that meeting. Outside of the initial shock and the great food, the food was excellent. So, well, for those who have been tuned in so far, this has been a dope conversation. But I want you to go ahead and introduce yourself to the people, and then let them know the organization that you have.
Sure. I'm part of Azad Ahmadi. I live here in Atlanta. I'm a Republican. I belong to the Georgia Black Republican Council, which is an affiliate of the Georgia GOP. And we work, quite frankly, to distribute a message of truth relative to the Republican Party, and to sort of align as many people as we can at a grassroots level to the core values that have always been successful for Black folks in America.
Okay, so let's talk about these truths.
Sure.
I know there's many, so I want you to start wherever you want to start as far as the message that you guys push in your totality and you individually.
Oh, okay, sure. So the organization is very much embracing of the idea that there are some reforms that are needed by way of government. But the general gist is that the Republican Party is about removing itself from your path to your happiness, right? The idea is that government needs to be smaller, not more robust, right? We want to remove government from from holding us between what we're looking for and the success or the perceived success that we're all pursuing. Whereas the other side, right, the Democrat side is very much for giving you something, and history shows, quite frankly, giving you something and taking something back, taking something from you in return, right? So that's the general gist of the message that we push. We're very much in support of the traditional values, again, that kind of led us to success between slavery and 1960. Just to be honest, where we built the great Black middle class.
People forget about that.
Yeah. I try to tell people, because you asked me about my personal and you asked about the GABC. I think that we have 60 to 70 years of objective evidence that our alignment to the Democrat Party and the very self-sabotaging policies that we've been convinced to vote for. I think we have enough evidence now to demonstrate that it simply doesn't work.
Yeah.
We've been at the bottom of every socio-economic metric in American society.
Almost underneath the
bottom. And it's just continuing to degrade. It's just, if you were to look at it on a graph, you look at all these metrics and you put them on a graph, you just see this downward trend, right? And I tell people, if you work in corporate America like I do, after 2 or 3 years of that, the C-suite starts looking to fire people, right? And so as Black Americans, we really need to start challenging what we expect from our elected officials at the local, the state, at the federal level. We need to hold them accountable with the understanding that the provisions for providing something aren't necessarily driving the way that we vote. I mean, that's where we need to go.
Yeah, so we need to get something for our vote. If I'm voting for you, what am I getting in return for that vote?
Sort of. So, I'll show you like this, right? So, Democrat Party would like to, or the current presidential administration would like to offer tuition reimbursement, I think it is, right? And in exchange, they would like your vote.
Oh, for the reimbursement.
Right, right,
Okay.
right. Well, the implied, right? The implied is that
got you.
that President Biden is trying to buy votes, right? Things aren't going so well in our community relative to our perception of his administration, and so he's pushing. He keeps bringing up this matter of paying off college students' loans, right? The idea, though, is that if you let that drive your voting behavior, unfortunately, on the other side of that policy, or on the other side of Democrat policy, are items and policies that are very much prohibitive of freedom. And a great example of that, I think, is the Democrats' agenda, year over year over year, to quail or to ban firearms. That's a great example. Americans keep saying we don't want to vote for this firearms ban across all denominations, across all races, across all, but every single year, every opportunity they get, they push a bill. They push a bill to try to get it done. You would think that they would come to an understanding that it's just not what the American people want. But I think that the real thing that we need to be worried about as Black Americans is what the what the underlying agenda is associated to removal of or containment, I should say, of your Second Amendment rights, which is the right to bear arms, which is the right to bear arms. So, we need to start thinking about prioritizing the issues in our community relative to their importance. I'll give you another example. I hear a lot about police reform. I hear a lot about police reform. I was in the barbershop, because again, the GABRC, right? We're in your barbershops now, talking to people. We're at your day parties, talking to people. We're on the street,
from the bottom to the top.
From the bottom to the top. We have members that work at the governor's level, and then we.
So, let me ask you this: was it the Obama administration itself that made you want to transition, or was it what you saw the direction heading in the next election after that?
That's a great question. That's a great question. And I wish I could give you a one-sentence answer, but I can't, so I'm gonna have to give you the long version. When Barack Obama ran for president, I believe a Black man could never be president. That's what I believe. I'm an '80s baby. Okay, I was born during the height of the crack epidemic, from the inner city. That's all I ever heard is a Black man will never be president. When Obama ran, and I realized that he was picking up steam, this brother is actually going, has a chance at winning. I voted for Barack Obama, and at that time, I, like many other Black Americans, I think we believed at that time that the matter of getting a Black man into the Oval Office was a matter of uniting our country. And I think, as a person who attended the inauguration, I know that the country felt more united at that time. Fast forward 8 years later, the vast majority of Americans who've been polled say that they feel that the country was further divided. As much as I can appreciate the idea that young brothers around the way can no longer say, young brothers like myself can no longer say, they'll never let me do that, right? As much as I can appreciate that, I also see some things that were very divisive. I think it's the common opinion of most that wokeism started with the Obama administration. I think that there's an aspect of that has divided our community. And I'll give you an example. Prior to Obama, prior to wokeism and the associated agendas, there was the Black male vote and the Black female vote. Now you have a Black male vote, you have a Black female vote, you have a Black gay vote, you have a queer vote, you have a transgender vote, right? So, the people, your listeners, those who are aware, most of them have probably heard the term divide and conquer. So, I think where we are today in society, I think where we are today in society, in some of our schools around America and so forth, you can see that some of the agendas that were pushed during his administration have created a bit of friction amongst the people. And so I think we need to be mindful of that, and I think we need to be more cautious of that in the world of politics and as leaders in the community. I always tell people, anytime you give something to one group, you know, there's another group that has some degree of spite, you know, and so you have to be. It's a byproduct, right? And so you have to be managing that as leaders.
Yeah. Yeah.
Does that answer the question?
Yeah. That essentially does answer the question. Getting a little bit more specific, what do you think that the divisive tactics were, and do you think that it was the Democratic Party in total, or do you think it was Obama administration?
Oh yeah. That's a great question. I don't think that Barack Obama and his administration are, you know, plotting and scheming on how they can divide people. I do think that there is a far left aspect of the Democrat Party that is unhealthy, quite frankly, for society. Um, and an example of that would be, you want an example. So an example of that would be, I'm trying to think, what's the best example that I could give you. Your question was, do you have a your question was what specifically? Give me the rest of
I
it.
got you.
Yeah.
What specifically do you think that it was that was divisive about? Was it the Obama administration or the Democratic Party in its totality around that time?
Yeah. The tactics, the political tactics that were deployed by the Democrat Party were very divisive. Okay, and I'll give you an example. During that brief time, from the beginning of his administration or his running for office in the first term through to Biden, right? Every third, fourth year, right during the election cycle, right on cue, black men are dying at the hands of the police is the name of the story. That's the messaging. That's the messaging every 4 years, right? But when you peel back that onion, what you find is that, in 2023, 250 black men died at the hands of the police. And if we assumed that all 250 of those black men that died at the hands of the police, if we assumed that they were all armed and they were all, the police were defending themselves, and you divided that number into the 49 million black Americans that exist, you'd have 0.0000367%, something like that, right? You round it to the first four places, man, you still got 0%.
So
but we let that guide our decision in many instances. I don't mean to cut you off.
Okay.
We let that guide our decision, right? We let those types of things guide our decisions and the way we cast our vote. And so now we have, as a result of that, we have Joe Biden, right? And it's safe to say that it seems here now that there are a growing number of black Americans that feel like the administration has let them down. So that's just one example. But I remember, before George Floyd, there was Trayvon Martin, right? There was
laundry list,
right? What happened? Like, what happened to black people dying at the hands of the police after Joe Biden got in office? Did it just stop?
Oh, okay, I see what you're saying.
You see what I'm saying? So before he came in the office, Black Lives Matter, and we need to do something, and we're going to have reform, right? And he gets inaugurated, and that's a dead message. And I think that speaks to the agendas of the party and the way that they play the game relative to leveraging black Americans.
I never even thought about that until just now.
I mean, it's something that we need to look at. I always tell people, as a community of brothers and sisters that are street savvy, right? We're very intelligent socially. If we could just look at the objective truths and read between some of the lines, right, we can really do a lot in our communities. Because quite frankly, the power to repair our community is in our community. And I think that the Republican Party and the GABC, for example, are very much supportive of that idea. And giving African Americans a voice and an opportunity to take matters into their own hands. And I think that's a real important aspect of our communities.
Why do you think people have such African American people have such a love for Bill Clinton?
Bill Clinton. I was a teenager during his administration. Maybe even a kid because he served 2 terms. I think Bill Clinton did a very good job of one, controlling the messaging, and two, he was very relatable. Right? He played music that we could identify with.
Okay.
Okay. He had there was a matter of infidelity in his marriage that a lot of brothers, let's just be honest, a lot of brothers can relate to.
Okay.
It's relatable.
I see what you're saying.
Right? It's relatable. Sometimes you show when you're sometimes if a person does something that isn't right, sometimes it shows they're human. But when you peel back the Clinton onion, we find more African American males going to prison during his term than any other. That's it. That's an issue. Which by the way, the Republican Party, right, supports value system that keeps you out of prison.
Out of prison.
See, and that's where conservatism really makes a difference. I always tell people conservatism wins. It doesn't matter if I have an eighth and I get 10 years and the other guy has an eighth and he only gets 5. It doesn't matter if I'm not standing in front of a judge getting sentenced. Right? So what we got to look at is we got to look at the values, and we got to look at how we can get more young brothers to circle around, being with their women, right? Not having kids out of wedlock, going to church and doubling down on their faith. We got to get more young brothers out here focused on taking their career and building wealth and so forth into their own hands. We're a community that believes in getting it out of the mud. That's a real popular comment in the last or slogan in the last 10 years.
Yeah, I say 10. Yeah,
the 10 years, right? Getting it out of the mud. We embrace rappers and athletes, entertainers that, in many instances, that got it out of the mud.
Entrepreneurship.
Yeah. But I think what that speaks to is it speaks to our internal desire to go and do what we need to do. And so I'm of the impression today that most black men are not looking for what the government is going to give them. They're looking for an opportunity for a fair shake to go and pursue their life and pursue their dream. And that's coming from a young brother from the inner city of DC during the 80s and 90s when we were the murder capital of the world.
Rough.
I mean, real tough place.
Yeah, very tough
real
place.
tough place. Pro-black, Black Power movement, Nation of Islam on the street selling bean pies. I've done all the stereotypical things that black men are supposed to do, right? In terms of the good and the bad, right? By the grace of God, I pulled through those things. Traveled the world thereafter. Served in the military, right? Got a chance to get a new view. Moved down south. I got a chance to see some very positive relationships amongst conservatives and Democrats, blacks and whites, and so where I'm at today at age 41 is quite frankly that we need to is that I've come to the conclusion, I should say, that we need to double down on all the great things from our culture. We need to let go of the self-sabotaging behavior, and so that's the message that we push at the GABRC.
Yeah, I think that the first bit, and this is what me and him were discussing when we got here, we're first recognizing what the self-sabotage is.
Sure.
And then changing the narrative of it so that the Republican Party can be looked at as something that is not divisive, and so that we can unconstruct it. And I'm going to tell you how it happens, because it's actually happened to me. The first time that Stacey Abrams ran for office, I forgot how old I was. I'm 29 now, so we can all do the math. And when she first ran, I remember my mom waking me up and saying, "Everybody go to the library, we're about to vote." And I hadn't voted yet. So we went down there. It was a long line. And we waited in that line. We got in there and I voted for Stacey. And I remember there was other things on there that I wasn't aware was going to be on there too.
Right.
And I remember when I asked my mom, I said, what else do I vote for? And her answer was simple. She said, vote everything Democrat.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I had to think about, okay, so my mom, and I love you, Mom. My mom had 5 kids by 5 different fathers. She was on Section 8.
Mhm.
She had food stamps.
Mhm.
She got the Habitat House from Jimmy Carter.
Sure,
She had
sure.
she had a lot of assistance.
Yep.
Through her life. I don't think she ever did the child support thing. I don't think she ever wanted that, but the other stuff she definitely did take advantage of. So now that I'm older, and when Stacey ran the second time, I don't know what happened between them 4 years, but I had lived a lot of life. And I guess a lot of success came my way to where now I had the opportunity to sit down and have meetings with Stacey,
Sure.
and sit down and have meetings with Kemp, and sit down and talk to the rest of the people that were running in their administration. And it opened my eyes to where I became the first person possibly in the world to post a picture of Stacey Abrams and Kemp on my page side by side.
Oh wow.
And to see when I had my conversations with them, what I realized was that outside of the party that they represented, that they were both extremely qualified human beings,
Sure.
community leaders to to move Georgia in a better direction. But when it came to the nitty gritty of where the funds are going to go,
Very different.
very different,
Very different.
very very different, and they both have very good views on why um, the money should go in this direction and should go in this direction. But I will say this: this is probably the first time I ever say it on camera. Is that when I had my conversation with Stacey, Stacey could not tell me where the other side of the money was going to come from to what she wanted to advocate out into the community.
Mm-hmm.
And I get the feeling now from listening to more Republicans speak that that was her way of knowing that things would have to go up for the general population in order for us to subside for what she wanted to give us on the front end.
Right. Right. You know, I think the biggest tragedy in our community, given that you know just a few generations ago, people were dying for civil rights and freedoms.
Mm-hmm.
I think the biggest tragedy is that of the underutilization of resources, existing resources in our communities.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I can tell you firsthand. I'm not just here in Atlanta. I'm in various parts of the hood, like they say, in Louisiana, as well as still going back and forth to DC to see family, friends, etc. So I have a pretty good touch on what's happening. Um, and I add to that that most of the people I know are my age, and so they now have either teenagers or you know, small children, teenagers. Some of them actually have 20-year-olds, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I can tell you firsthand about an experience most recently where I visited a school on PTA, you know, and there were 33 students in the class, and only 3 parents showed up, right? And so I don't care how new the books are. I don't care, you know, how new the air conditioning is. You know, if mom and dad aren't sitting down for whatever reason, right? Working, whatever, right? But if mom and dad aren't sitting down with their kids to work on math homework, right? Then the grades can't change, and the resources won't make a difference. The money will just be spent on, you know, I don't know, janitorial service contracts, or I don't know. They'll cut the grass outside the school more frequent than they are today to burn up the cash. Um, at least that's my view as somebody who is in the community. Um, and I'm gonna leave you with this on that note. I don't see local politicians in the community unless they're there to get a photo op. You know, one of the things that I have a real concern about is the number of elected officials that, quite frankly, don't understand what's really happening in our neighborhood and refuse to build a career by being honest, right, and developing credibility with the community. One of the reasons why I'm able to go into the barbershop, you know, my barbershop in DC, and say some of the things that, you know, probably nobody else can walk in there and say, is because everybody know what life was like and what I was doing just 20 years ago. You know what I mean? Can't nobody say, well, he don't understand, he doesn't know.
Oh, yeah, he know.
He definitely knows. If anybody knows, he knows.
He know.
Right. So you know, I would like to see not just us doubling down on our values, but I'd like to see more Black Republican males, conservatives from the community coming out getting out into the public eye, pushing the messaging, and leading our communities, running for office. That would be really, really what I'd like to see. And the GABRC does a very good job, actually, of preparing candidates to do just that, right? Um, but we need more brothers like yourself.
Oh, thank you.
We need more brothers like yourself and others that you have on the platform to come out and tell an objective truth and say, hey, look, I'm gonna work for you here. I need you guys to meet me halfway and help yourselves with this. And then I think the rest of it is all uphill, just to be honest.
No, I couldn't agree more. Are there any conservative leaders that you have met that you felt were not suitable to represent the party?
I can say this with all honesty. I've not met a conservative yet that I didn't believe wouldn't do as good a job and let me go back. I don't believe I've met a conservative leader, a candidate or otherwise, candidate or elected official, that couldn't do a better job than any Democrat leader that I've seen. I give you an example. I saw in Atlanta, in response to homelessness, I saw that the mayor had set up like these these new container pods, like container homes, right, to get some of these people, which I think is a good thing. Let me say that, right.
For those who don't know, he's talking about the luxury tiny homes.
The luxury tiny homes, yeah, luxury tiny homes. Thank you for giving me the words. Being in supply chain myself, the global supply chain, I know the cost of a container, and I'll tell you, they don't cost $125,000.
Sure don't.
And so it makes me raise an eyebrow to say, hey man, what are we doing? What are we doing with the resources, right? Yeah. So when you look at conservatives, in general, they're very fiscally responsible. If you look across all the blue cities in America, you can't find one that's fiscally conservative. You can't find not one example where the Democrats are under budget, getting everything done. And in fact, I mean, we're seeing in Baltimore, for example, a young lady was convicted of or charged, I think, with mortgage fraud. That's what we see now. Tiffany Henyard in Ohio, and they're saying she abused funds, and she's a mayor, right? Again, we need to take a harder look at who we voting for. And in general, you have two types of conservatism, right? Well, you have multiple types of conservatism, but you have fiscal conservatives, biblical conservatives, etc.
Okay.
And so, hey, if your focus is like mine, which is very much monetary and fiscal, and ensuring that our communities have money and wealth, and we can build wealth and do all those things, right? Property values are increasing, yeah. Then you just generally tend to lean on the side of fiscal conservatism.
Okay, I see what you're saying. And it's from the sounds of it, everybody benefits from that.
Everybody benefits from it.
Yeah.
Everybody benefits from it. And at a deeper level, because I talked about values just a few minutes ago. Values improve so many things, right? They improve the level of crime in our community, right? And here's where I'm gonna tie it to. Our property values are tied to crime, rates of crime.
Yeah, you're right.
Right, in our inner cities, yeah. Right, where the crime is higher, the property value is lower. Yeah. People don't want to move to areas that are high in crime, right?
Right.
So where I'm going with this is, if we double down on our values, right? If we double down on our values, we commit less crime. When we commit less crime, our property value goes up, but benefits us monetarily, right? So, yeah. So again, those are items that are not necessarily GABRC perspectives, but one that I could definitely tell you is shared amongst Black male conservatives for sure.
That's a great point. You are one of the fortunate people that got to be in this room when I just got to interview Jeff, and I want you to give me your honest assessment of how you feel about the conversation that me and him had, and the views that he shares, and his plans becoming shared.
Okay. Very, very easy. So in general, I think the commissioners, the current commissioners, are doing right by Georgians. okay, across the state. Okay, as it pertains to Jeff, I would he wants to be the sheriff. Okay, and what I didn't hear was how he spoke to how he intends to manage the prison system, but he didn't really speak to what impacts our community the most, which is crime.
Oh, committing crime in the first place.
Committing crime in the first place.
Okay.
Clayton County, which is the county he's running in, Clayton County has one of the highest rates of crime in America. Right? So, do we want to focus on how we're going to manage all these people in prison? Right? I mean, certainly there's a degree that has to get done, and people need to live in under humane circumstances and all that. I'm definitely not saying that they shouldn't.
Yeah.
But where I'm going with this is, I would like to hear about more community involvement, right? Where we start preaching to our children and start preaching to grandma and them that, hey man, them dudes down there on the corner that y'all afraid to snitch on, y'all need to snitch on them dudes. See, we've created in our communities a what's the word I'm looking for? A culture of not telling, and that's self-sabotaging to us, right? I would love to hear Jeff and other sheriffs across Georgia. You know, I live in 3rd District. I would love to hear Jeff and others who are running for that seat talking about the community outreach programs that they plan to put in place, and how they intend to impact the lives of daily Americans. I mean, I get it that we have things going on in the prison system. Yeah. But good, honest, hard-working Americans today, right? They're not focused. That's just the reality. They're not focused on what's happening in the prison system. That's just not where their minds are. Their minds are on their pocketbook. Yeah. Their minds are on being able to go to the ATM machine after it get dark outside. Yeah. Their minds are on whether or not they're going to get robbed on Old National Highway, right?
No, that makes sense. Yeah,
that's where their mind is at, right? So I get it. I get it. There are lanes between the county and the sheriff's department, but I would love to hear about some collaboration between both of those organizations as it pertains to changing the narrative in our communities. You know, we talk about cleaning up our communities. I think he mentioned litter.
Litter,
he mentioned litter,
illegal dumping, and the programs that he wanted to implement into the community that were denied.
Yeah. That's a sensitive topic for me, because so many brothers go to prison and then end up working on road patrols, cleaning up trash. I'm sure you've seen that,
I've
right?
Seen it.
Well, why not bring those brothers to the neighborhoods that they're from? Why not bring those same brothers back to the neighborhood that they're from and have them clean up their own neighborhood? Does two things. Number one, federal taxpayers' dollars clean up the communities where these people came from, which is our communities, which we need.
Yeah.
And secondly, TJ and Boo Man and them being able to see somebody that they know in an orange jumpsuit give you a different perspective.
Oh yeah.
Give you a lot different perspective. Yeah. And I remember a program like this in the community that I grew up in the early '90s. They had a program like this. I think it was very early '90s. I think maybe Marion Barry was the mayor of DC. You know, where's that? Let's talk about it, man.
Oh, that same program.
Yeah. Where's that? Yeah. You know, so that's sort of. Do we need legal reform? Yeah, but we need to work on us.
I get what you're saying. Yeah. I think that to delve into that, I think that what he was saying was that there's such chaos that's going on inside of the jail and the prison that it makes it harder for them to be able to facilitate which inmates are going to be the ones that are even I guess you could say have good enough behavior, so to speak, or that have been put in a good enough positioning for them to even go out to the community and clean it and be trusted to do so without there being any acts of violence or any attempts of escape or anything like that. From picking up what I was saying, instead of working on from the bottom to the top, he wanted to work from the top to the bottom. Sure.
Yeah. And I agree with that. Yeah. I agree with that in that way. I think he's a good guy, to be honest with you. I think he's a good guy. I think he's working on he's working on improvements. I like that. I think he's aligned to a really good group of commissioners. You know, Fitz Johnson and others, right? And so I'm all for him. I'm all for him. But there's always something else we can do, right?
No, for sure.
There's always something else we can do. So that's why I'm bringing light to that.
No, for sure. I think that on a local level, there's always, and I agree with you when you say that politicians always usually talk about what they're going to do behind the desk or at the desk, but they never really talk about in front of the desk, which is the community.
The community.
And you have hundreds of thousands of people that are lined up to hear what you have to say. When you can utilize those same people instead of telling us what you're going to do,
that's right.
Let us know what we can do to help you in pursuit of what you're doing.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's a very good point you make. One of the points of the GABRC is to reach the community relative to, again, I would call it republicanism, all right? And the power of conservatism, the power of the party. But we're not asking people to come to us, right? We're not asking people to go to government to get a message, right? To go to their elected officials to get a message. What we're doing is we're bringing these commissioners, for example, to the GABRC and bringing them to the community, right? So, for example, we recently had Tim Echols, a public service commissioner. We recently had him at an event just last week where not just Republicans, but Republicans and Democrats could ask objective questions about what was being done in a multitude of different facets, from public utility to natural gas, etc. Right? I would love to see more politicians going to the people than I'm seeing asking the people to come to them.
I see.
That's kind of where I'm going with this.
No, I see what you're saying, 100%. You know what I'm gonna do too? I'm gonna contact Commissioner Ted Terry because he has a going green thing that he's doing right now. Everything with him is green. He wants to do solar panels. Sure. He wants to do electric cars. He wants everything to go green. And for the future. And what I want to do with him is I want to have a conversation with him, a follow-up conversation with him about his community going green. And so that way I can help bridge the gap between him and Jeff as far as that program being implemented again.
Sure.
Maybe we can go through the back door instead of the front door.
Hey, that's right. That's right. That's a good one. That's a good one. That's a good one.
And I don't see too many commissioners, especially in different districts and jurisdictions, working together when there's really nothing that prevents them from doing so on just a human aspect rather than a political aspect. So I think that'd be a huge statement.
I agree. And you know, there's another aspect to this, which is, you know, a lot of these roles, right? We're asking a commissioner to serve everybody. We're not asking a commissioner to meet the intent of a Republican or a Democrat, right? We're not asking them to be. We're really not asking them. They're elected, but we're really not asking them to be politicians, right? We're really asking them to serve the people, and I think that that we need to keep that all in mind as we go forward in electing, you know, here in the next few weeks, in electing the right candidate for the job, and not the candidate that necessarily has the alignment or that looks like you or any of those kind of things.
Is there anybody that you like in this upcoming election that you want to give a shout out to and to familiarize the people with they may not be familiar with?
I'm gonna stay out of it. I'm gonna stay out of it. I'm gonna stay out of it. Okay. I always tell people, you know, I like many other members of the GABRC, we are not politicians, right? I'm not endorsing anybody. We offer a perspective and we act as an interface between Democrats and the Republican Party. We push a message and we say, hey, look, this is what's beneficial for your life over here, and we try to keep it that way.
Okay, I definitely understand. I understand 100%. As we wrap up, is there anything that you want the people to know about you or your organization that we haven't touched on, and what you guys want to do in the future?
I won't be long-winded. I'll just say this: the power to fix the community lies within the community. We need to double down on our values, and we need to divest of the self-sabotaging behavior that prevents us from looking at politicians in an objective manner, and that comes from a place relative to the GABRC. That statement is being made and coming from a place of love.
So more from a humanitarian aspect.
Yeah, humanitarian aspect, yeah.
More from a humanitarian aspect.
Yeah.
And that definitely hits home, since since I wear so many different hats, now when people ask me what it is that I do and who it is that I am, I just let them know that I'm a human being. I'm a humanitarian at heart. So I also would like to offer you a feather as well.
Oh man.
And
Okay.
for those who don't know the origin of this feather, this is an eagle feather. I am a member of the Igbo tribe in Nigeria, and this feather represents being a community leader and doing substantial work in the community to make sure that we have a better tomorrow. And I want to offer this to you.
Thank you very much. I very much appreciate it. I'm flattered. Um, hopefully we get to work together, and hopefully we get to get to the neighborhood together. And look, whether you're aligned with us or not, if you're interested in serving the people, we want to talk. Fair enough.
Fair enough. That sounds good to me. I appreciate you joining me
All
for
right,
this
yes, indeed.
conversation.
Yes, indeed. Thank you.
All right, so y'all enjoy the rest of y'all night, morning, evening, whenever you guys catch this episode. And where can they find you on your social medias?
Oh yeah. So I'm on Instagram at Sensible Southern. You can also find me by first name, last name, Azad Ahmadi, Azad, last name Ahmadi on LinkedIn. And you can find me every third Friday of the month. You can find me at Louisiana Bistro at the Georgia Black Republican Council's Cool Down Fridays, where Democrats and Republicans are invited to come in. Let's talk. We don't do a whole lot of arguing back and forth. We talk about the things that that impact our community, and we have productive conversations. If that makes any sense.
No, that makes all the sense in the world. It's the only type of conversation that we really should be having.
That's right.
Especially in our community, because we are behind, and we have a lot of catching up to do. And we can catch up effectively once we get to these objective truths. So everybody, please get out of their feelings, and let's make it a mission for us to move forward gracefully. So I want to thank you guys for joining us on this episode of the High Value Sigma Male Podcast. Until next time.